Yo, what's up, guys? We're back for another week of UFC breakdown and predictions, and feeling pretty good about this one. I know this isn't the best card, but we're coming off a really great card this past week, and we did really well on it betting-wise. We've been doing really good betting-wise the whole year, and there's a lot of events to bet on this week with Fury FC, PFL, LFA, Aries FC, UFC, a lot of events going on, and quite a few spots that I'm going to be targeting betting-wise, so definitely check out patreon.com/MyPredictionGuru if you want to make some money. You know, we've been going up this year, but we're going to kick this card off right away here with JuanCamilo, Ronderos taking on Clayton Carpenter for the first fight, and this is a pretty low-level fight. It's not a fight that I'm too invested in. I think both fighters have holes. When you look at Ronderos, I think he had a really bad performance in his UFC debut, and it was tough circumstances. He went in against a top 10 fighter in David Dvorak, who was on a win streak at that time, peaking confident. He had very short notice chance to take the fight, and really was kind of given a no-win opportunity there. But you go and you look at JuanCamilo Ronderos' other fights, he's very tough. He comes in, he is always well-conditioned, and he's going to fight for your money and fight till the end, tooth and nail. So got to give him credit for that. And Clayton Carpenter, I think he's built from that same fabric. I think that he's one of those guys that also is willing to dig deep to get wins. And he showed a little bit of that in his last fight, but I just haven't seen it as much as I've seen it from Ronderos, because Ronderos tends to be in very close competitive fights where he has to claw his way back. But Clayton Carpenter had a lot of explosive finishes early. He's definitely the more dangerous fighter, the more athletic, powerful fighter, and he's someone that is pretty skilled. It's just his defense needs to improve, and he hasn't been tested too much yet. He's only 6-0. He's still very raw, in my opinion, and when you're a young guy at flyweight with, you know, a skill set that's not necessarily as polished as it needs to be, that's one of the worst divisions to be in, because both these guys are in that position, 4-1, 6-0, and you have to be so skilled at flyweight to stick around in the UFC that getting wins is extremely hard, and we're going to see what happens. But with Ronderos, he does have some championship experience. He does have a victory over Eric Shelton, who had a decent run in the UFC. But when you look at Ronderos, he's one of these guys that on the feet he's aggressive, and he'll throw some big punches, but he's not really that skilled, and he's definitely more of a grappler, but his wrestling is not very good. Like, he will be able to get guys against a cage, and once he wears them down, he can take them down, but he doesn't tend to be the best offensive wrestler. When he gets on top, he does have a fairly slick submission game, and he has good control, and his cardio is really good, so he can push the pace in that aspect. But his defensive wrestling is also very weak. You know, I've seen him get taken down at will in a lot of fights. And he's at the right gym, Extreme Couture, to fix that. But in none of his fights have I've really seen him show good takedown defense, UFC-level takedown defense. And it seems like his ability off his back to scramble and get back up to his feet is good. It's very hard to hold down flyweights. And if you get tired from him standing up, and creating scrambles, he can eventually create a scramble and get on top, and that's how he can win fights. If you look at a lot of his fights, he ends up getting his back taken, and he's very good at, reversing that position and getting to top, so he could get his back taken, get taken down, and then reverse, get on top, and steal the round with control and ground and pound. And he also has very good cardio, like I said, toughness. So if guys get tired a little bit, then he can just take over and kind of break you. Clayton Carpenter, he is more skilled. He is like a switch stance guy, good footwork on the outside, good pressure. He bounces in and out, and he can mix it up too. He has good wrestling. His submissions seem all right. Very dangerous high kick, pretty good hooks. He has good speed, but he just doesn't move his head, and he squares up a lot. His defense just is not the greatest. And I haven't seen him tested much against good grapplers, good wrestlers. So those are the two things that he's going to need to really show that he can defeat in the UFC. On his Contender Series fight, he did win, but he had to go through a hard fight. He got clipped a lot. I believe he got knocked down or dropped, if I am recollecting correctly. So he definitely needs to shore up that defense. But with Ronderos, I don't necessarily see him as a huge threat in the stand-up. He's not technical enough to be that dangerous, in my opinion. And it's going to be more if Carpenter pressures him and, feels comfortable striking. I'm not saying Ronderos isn't going to get any shots in. I just don't know if he has the power, and I don't know if he has enough to compete with Clayton, who does mix it up with the kicks and will bounce in and out, explode in and out with some punches. And I think he's going to have the more dangerous offense on the feet, the better offense, and the more volume. So I think it's going to be tough for Ronderos to really compete on the feet. But if they get it to the ground and Ronderos can create scrambles and get on top, then he could potentially steal the fight that way. I don't see him being able to take Carpenter down and get on top from offensive wrestling. So I do see this as Clayton Carpenter's fight to lose. I think Carpenter also comes in great shape, so Ronderos doesn't have the ability to wear him down, I wouldn't believe. So I'm going to say Clayton Carpenter ends up getting this win. I'm going to say it's a decision win in this one. I know that Ronderos got ran through pretty quickly against David Dvorak, but it was short notice. Like I said, he was facing a very high-level guy. He missed weight. I don't think he was prepared. This one, he's going to be 100% prepared. I think he's going to be very determined, and I think he's going to be tough. Like, I think he's going to make the fight hard. Kind of like you watched that fight with Don Shanis last week against Jack Jenkins. Similar to that, where it's like he's a step behind, but he's always in the fight, and he's, semi-dangerous. But I think Clayton is going to be able to control it. It's just Clayton's defense makes me a little weary to back him at a minus 300 price tag. But ultimately, I think he's going to be able to mix in some takedowns too. And I see his top control and grappling being good enough to offset the scrambling ability of Ronderos and keep that position. So I'm going to say Carpenter wins a fairly comprehensive 29-28 or 30-27 decision here and moves to 1-0 in the UFC. And coming up next, we got a pretty low-level fight, AJ Fletcher versus Themba Gorimba. Gorimba's making his UFC debut here, and Fletcher's trying to avoid going 0-3 in the UFC and getting cut. And I think they're trying to give AJ Fletcher a victory, but it's kind of hard to say. I mean, my personal opinion, I don't see Themba Gorimba being a UFC-level fighter. He is 4-1 in his last 5 fights, but he's already 32 years old, and I just don't know. I don't see him having a huge future in the UFC, or I don't really know why he got brought in personally. But he seems very confident. I mean, you see him on Twitter, saying Mamba mentality, holding the belt. And a lot of times, I mean, you know what happens when people hold the belt before their debut. It's bad luck a lot of the time. But he seems to have that mojo, that confidence that he's going to come in here and start running things. And AJ Fletcher, he was undefeated before joining the UFC. He had that killer corner with Mike Brown, Dustin Poirier, and a lot of backing, but just hasn't produced. He had that really nasty KO with the flying knee, but his 2 fights in the UFC just has not looked very good. He had a decent performance against Matthew Semmelsberger, but his last fight, he just kind of got dominated a little bit, and it was an unimpressive performance as a favorite. And he's a favorite again here, and I think this one is a more winnable fight because when I look at Themba Gorimba, I just don't really think I don't know, his style is not the best to me. On the feet, he is long and rangy. He's going to have a big reach advantage, which, almost all AJ Fletcher's opponents have against him, but Gorimba is fairly fast, and he'll hit some pull counters. His striking, he seems not that confident in it, though, because his defense isn't the best, and you could tell that he doesn't react the greatest getting hit. I've seen him get rocked even in victories. I've seen him get hurt pretty badly in fights, and seems like he doesn't have the best chin or the best defense. And his offense is low volume, kind of sparing. He tends to want to try to wrestle offensively, but his wrestling seems pretty low level. Like, he's able to take down some of these lower level opponents that he's been facing and ground and pound him to victories. But I don't necessarily, even though AJ Fletcher's takedown defense doesn't really make me go wow or anything like that, I don't think he's going to be able to take down Fletcher, and his takedown defense is weak. Like, he can get taken down pretty easily. I feel like in this fight he might try to come out quick and get the knockout, because I don't know if he's going to, if he does go with that grappling route, trying to hit takedowns and control on top, I think Fletcher's just going to sprawl him out or take him down first and beat him. I think his best chance to win is just to pressure and try to get that early KO. With AJ Fletcher, we've seen that, his stature, having a 67-inch reach at 170 pounds, really limits his striking ability. He struggles to get inside and can get kicked, kept on the outside with long strikes up the middle and just beat up a little bit. But he is very explosive, and when he can get inside, he can throw big power. We've seen him land those flying knees and big knockout strikes like that too. So his striking is formidable, especially in a fight like this, because if he can close the gap and touch the chin of Gorimba, I think that he could hurt him. I think he has that power. And I also believe that Fletcher is the more durable fighter. I think he's faster, more explosive. So I think the striking could be a little bit more competitive for Fletcher in this one, even though I don't think he's going to want to strike long term. I think the easiest game plan would be to use what brought him to the table here, and that's getting the takedowns, controlling on top. We saw him against Matthew Semmelsberger navigate a tall guy that I think is a lot more polished than Themba Gorimba, get him down several times, control him on top, and he ended up losing that fight. He got a little bit tired. He did get beat up, but once again, like I said, I think that Matthew Semmelsberger is a lot better than Themba Gorimba is, and I think that Fletcher's wrestling is just overpowering in the matchup. I think that he's going to be able to take down Gorimba, control him on top, and Gorimba didn't really show me much off of his back to make me think that he's going to be able to handle Fletcher, get up from bottom, or do anything like that. And I just think Fletcher's going to be able to win this one. So I'm going to go with AJ Fletcher by decision. I think he could win by first round knockout too if he just catches him early, if Gorimba comes in and tries to make it a firefight. And I think Fletcher knows that his back is against the wall here. He has that backing. He needs to win. And I think he has the goods to get the job done in this particular matchup. Going forward in the division, I don't really know. But I think he's going to get past Themba Gorimba here. And I'm going to say AJ Fletcher wins by decision. And with this next fight, this is going to be a good one. I think it'll be an explosive fight with Ovince St. Preux taking on Philipe Lins. Ovince St. Preux, he's back. He's had a lot of UFC fights. We know what he's all about. But he's getting up there, almost 40 years old at this point. Is coming off a win over Shogun Rua, but that was a very lackluster fight. Philipe Lins, 0-2 in the UFC to start his career. Both those fights were at heavyweight. He put in the dedication, decided to make the drop down to 205 pounds, and it paid off. He got the win over Marcin Prachnio. Looked okay. I didn't think he looked incredible, but he did change his style up for that one. A lot of his fights, he's more of a guy that likes to counterpunch and stay smart, use the jab. He'll throw some heavy calf kicks, nice left hook. Overhand right is pretty good, and he kind of just likes to counterpunch. He had very good hand speed at heavyweight, and he has some power. But in his last fight, he was, I think, struggling with the kicks and the more kind of diverse skill set of Marcin Prachnio in the striking realm, because he doesn't really mix in a lot of kicks. He's more of just a boxing-only guy besides the calf kicks. And he decided to blitz more, get inside a lot more, make it ugly, control against the cage, hit some takedowns. And I don't think he's going to try to come with that game plan in this fight. I think in this fight he's going to try to work off that jab and throw leg kicks. But I feel like he's going to struggle with that range. He struggled a lot with the teep kick of Marcin Prachnio, and he struggled a lot with those round kicks as well. And I feel like OSP, even though he is an older guy at this point, once he gets going with those front kicks, those teep kicks, it takes him a little while. He's a slow starter, so Philipe may try to jump on him quick. But I do think that ultimately, if the fight starts to get later, those front kicks, those teep kicks are going to have to force Philipe Lins to be more aggressive. And when Philipe Lins is aggressive and tries to come forward, he's very hittable. His defense is not good at all. And even though you see a guy like OSP, he's not gotten a knockout in a while. He's not someone that's really looked incredible in a while. I feel like, I think that he's a guy that ultimately is a beast. Like, he still has that ability to land that left hook counter off the back foot and knock you out with one punch. Or right hook, And he has the kicks from the outside. He has the grappling game, where I think Philipe Lins isn't going to be able to clinch and hold him against the cage. I think that OSP is going to be the better clinch fighter. I think OSP could hit takedowns potentially and put Lins on his back where he doesn't want to be if they do end up clinching like that. OSP's top game is underrated, and even though OSP is one of these guys that I think is getting up in age, I think if he faces a very aggressive fighter that has good pressure striking, he could be in trouble, especially when their defense is on point. But if he's fighting one of these guys like Philipe Lins, where I think they struggle on the outside because they don't really bring the most outside of pure boxing, and they struggle with getting hit as they try to enter, I think those guys are tailor-made for OSP, especially when the guy can't take OSP down and grind him out either. So I think OSP is going to get the knockout in this one. I think it's going to be a violent knockout, kind of similar to the Alonzo Menafield type knockout. Lins, I think if he wins, it's going to be a leg kick, kind of slow striking fight where he edges it. But I think Lins is too hittable. I think he's going to get touched here by OSP, who is getting older but still has that power in his hands and is still explosive. I think he's still the better athlete, better grappler. I think he has the better kicking game, and I think he can catch him on the counter. Lins' chin is a little questionable, and all that is leading me towards going with the underdog. So I'm going to go with OSP via knockout in this one. I'll say second round KO TKO. And this next fight, this is an interesting matchup here. Jamal Emmers, he's coming back. He's taking on Khusein Askhabov, who's been in the UFC pool for a long time. He got signed, I believe, almost 3 years ago, but hasn't fought 2 years and 11 months, so it's been a long time since we've seen Askhabov compete. He had some visa issues and things like that, but he's been perfect in the in the cage. He hasn't fought in the octagon yet, but he's 27 years old now. He's 23-0, and he's competed exclusively in Russia. The majority of his fights have taken place in the WWFC promotion, which isn't the greatest Russian promotion. And if you look at Askhabov's record, it reflects that. He definitely has beaten a couple guys who are decent, but most of his wins have came against fighters with under 10 pro fights and a lot of squash matches. He was scheduled to fight a couple times, and like I said, those got squashed with visa issues. And I did see he was scheduled to fight at 35 pounds in the UFC, and he did have a few fights at 135 pounds before joining the UFC. And but he's doing this one at 145, which he's had a lot of 145 fights as well, but just the more recent fights that he's had were all at 135, so technically he is moving back up in weight. He did win the title in the WWFC promotion at 35 and 45, and at 27 years old, you'd probably expect him to be a little bit stronger, bigger than when he fought when he was 25, so maybe that's another reason why he's moving up in weight. And on the feet, he's evasive, he's mobile, he'll throw some good kicks. Distance control looks pretty good, and he can control range. I haven't really seen much from the hands with him. His last fight, he did land a flying knee knockout, but I don't really think he's that dangerous on the feet. He hasn't really faced many fighters who threw back at him or had good striking either, and I'm curious to see how he does against a pressure fighter that can negate his kicking game, and so it's going to be interesting. I don't really think this guy is that proven, but he has kind of a difficult style to beat by points on the feet if he could keep you on the outside with his kicks and then get the takedowns when you come in, because his wrestling is good, times the takedowns well, pretty good clinch takedowns, looks strong, and on top he is kind of contented to stick in full guard, laying ground and pound. He does have a few submission wins, front chokes, but I don't really see him as a huge submission threat against higher level fighters. And I have seen him make mistakes, get put on his back, get his back taken. And I think that Jamal Emmers, who's also a high-level wrestler, could easily give him fits, and I'll grapple him in this one potentially. But what I've seen from Askhabov is a great ability to win decisions. He runs, he kicks. When fighters overcommit or get frustrated, he takes them down. Cardio is on point, but hasn't fought a great level of competition. I don't see a big danger factor from him. And I've seen him make mistakes in the grappling. I don't necessarily know how good his wrestling truly is or striking. Training at Tiger Muay Thai does give you some sort of maybe potential thought that his striking could be a little bit better, but I don't really know. I mean, I don't think he's been tested. With Jamal Emmers, we got a fighter with a lot of natural gifts, a ton of skill, but his UFC career just has not gone as planned so far. He's only 1-2, and he's battled a lot of injuries. His last fight, he had that knee injury against Pat Sabatini with the heel hook that took him out for almost a year. And now he's 33 years old, so it's put up or shut up time for him. I mean, the guy, a lot of people treat him like a bum, but I don't agree with that. I mean, he's a former LFA champ. He is someone that dropped Pat Sabatini and then got caught. He went to a split decision with Giga Chikadze that at the time, a lot of people thought he should have won. So I feel like Jamall Emmers is being underrated, undervalued in this spot. He used to be the prospect. Now he's facing the young guy with the Ov at the end of his name and an undefeated record. That's always something that the odds makers like. But Emmers, he's an athletic wrestler, and on the feet, he's pretty fast. He likes to pressure, feint, then uses length to counterpunch or blitz in with the long punches and kicks. He's pretty high volume, and he keeps the range well. I believe he's going to be the significantly bigger fighter in this and have the much longer reach also, which is going to be a big factor in the fight. And defensively, Emmers is good, but his chin is questionable. If it becomes a war of attrition, I do favor Askhabov, but if it stays technical, I think Emmers could win the fight. And Emmers is a really good wrestler as well. He's very hard to hold down, very hard to take down, and his offensive wrestling is very good too. He has nasty clinch knees. I think he has very good timing on the double. His top control is pretty good, and he could submit guys when they get tired. The grappling is where Emmers has gotten in trouble at times, though. He did get his knee racked against Sabatini. He's gotten submitted in one other fight as well. And mainly fight IQ is what's held Emmers back. He probably, he just has lapses in judgment. He'll get submitted. He'll get caught in a knockout. And he has the chance to get upset in this fight. And I think that it's more of a 50-50 fight. Emmers is going to be able to make the stand-up fight probably close. And I think that he's going to have the edge there with the length. And I think he'll also have the wrestling advantage. I think the clinch is going to be somewhere where Emmers can take advantage too. Askhabov is low volume, not the most impressive striker. And unless he can just out-wrestle Emmers with ease and take him down and hold him down, which I think it's going to be tough against a high-level wrestler who's bigger than him, then I think he's going to have a rough night. I think Askhabov's record is a little bit fugazi, and I'm going to say that Jamall Emmers gets this job done by decision, kind of exposes Askhabov a little bit, maybe even submits him with the rear naked choke. I think the sub prop for Emmers is live this week, but I'm going to go with Emmers to win this fight via decision. And this next fight I'm not going to spend a lot of time on. I think Mayra Bueno Silva is the big favorite for a reason. She's had some some ball dropping spots in certain fights, but I think now that she's at 135, she's going to come in and she's going to be able to show better performances more often than not. She's won 2 fights in a row for the first time in her UFC career, and she's facing a girl that's 40 years old, almost 41, on a 3-fight losing streak. And Lansberg's striking is just not that great. She did drop Kirill with the elbow, but I think Silva is the much better striker. And Lansberg likes to clinch, but I think that Silva's clinch game is a lot better. The only way that Lansberg wins this fight to me is if she could take her down and hold Silva down, where Silva has a good submission game, but we've seen her get tired and held down in the past and lose decisions that way. But I just don't see it. I don't think that Lansberg's going to be able to hit takedowns. I think that Silva's going to get the better of her at range. I think Silva's the better girl in the clinch. I think Silva has the higher finishing upside on the feet and in the submission realm. And she's younger. She's more athletic. I just find it hard to believe that Lina Lansberg comes in here and gets this win. I'm not saying it's impossible. I mean, both these girls aren't world beaters. And Lansberg, she's gotten some okay victories in the past, but it's been a long time since she's gotten a win. And I think Silva is definitely the favorite for a reason here, and I think she gets the job done. Lansberg's tough to get out of there, man. She usually makes a decision against almost everybody, so I'm going to say she makes it to a decision, but I'm going to go with Mayra Bueno Silva, and I think she's going to win pretty convincingly. I think she's going to do some damage and beat Lansberg up here. And this next fight, I really like this matchup. 2 young guys, 2 prospects with Nazim Sadykhov. This is going to be his UFC debut. Evan Elder, this is going to be his second UFC fight. First one was a short notice fight. It was not really under the best circumstances, so this is definitely a better opportunity for him to come in here and show his skills. But yeah, I really like this fight from a matchup perspective. I think that Nazim Sadykhov is a very good fighter skill-wise, but I think he needs to work on his cage wrestling for sure. It seems like he really struggles to get his back off the cage and is just too nonchalant, allowing guys to hold him there, and he will lose a lot of time in the rounds and a lot of time in the fight just getting held against the fence. But he's pretty tough to take down, especially against the cage. I've seen a few guys take him down, and he hasn't necessarily fought the greatest wrestler, so it's hard to say his takedown defense is super, super good, but it looks good, and he looks strong. He's reversed takedowns and gotten on top, and he's hit some takedowns himself. And his striking is good, too. At range, he has nice kicks. He has pretty good straight punches, nice counters. He has power as well. He can be low volume, though, which can hurt him a little bit, and he's also a little bit hittable himself, especially if you can get him back going backwards. But he definitely, when he lands, he's very impactful, and he only needs to land minimal strikes to match his opponent's volume in a lot of cases because he has that type of power. He also will wear on guys that want to take him down just by, even though he's getting held in the clinch, he's landing some knees, he's denying some takedown attempts, and when they get back to space, then Sadykhov can really start to go to work, and that's why you see him having a lot of late finishes and also having some late submissions because he'll break guys down and then they start shooting bad takedowns, and that's when Nazim can get on top and work that top grappling and end up getting the submission. So I think he's a very sturdy guy because he's durable. He is someone that has solid offensive top control, offensive grappling skill, good defensive wrestling, and he also has good range striking. It's just he has low volume. His cage wrestling definitely seems like it needs a little bit of work, and he can be a little bit too nonchalant, a little bit too low volume. I don't think he's learned those lessons yet, that when he faces a guy that can really mix it, that's a high volume fighter, I think he could get dominated a little bit, even though he has that skill, just because he's not going to match the pace. So he needs to get more reps in against better guys and start to see what it's like. But with Evan Elder, he's someone that's not as, even though like Nazim is someone that's more traditional, like he stands tall, he can move in and out, and he likes to pressure, straight line, more type of thing, where Elder, a lot of lateral movement, he's trying to dart in, dart out with hooks, overhands, and he's explosive. He has pretty good reach for the weight as well, and he's fairly long, so he can kind of dart in, dart out, land shots. He has okay kicking game. I think on the feet, overall, Nazim is more technical, but Elder could make up for that with the volume if he can take the power of Sadykhov. And I also think that Elder in this fight needs to wrestle, and he needs to mix it up because Elder does have good level changes. If he can get Sadykhov against the cage, I think he can hold him there and stay active enough to not let the ref break him up. Then it could be a big, huge way that he could win the fight just by stalling him out against the cage. And these guys at Killcliff FC, they see what Nazim's deficiencies are. They see that he doesn't really push that high of a pace. They know that he's dangerous at space, but if you can close that space and put him in the clinch against the cage, he can be a little bit too willing to stay there and lose the fight that way. And I think Elder could put him in that position. And ultimately, I think Elder is just going to be putting a little bit more out there on the feet too. Unless Nazim hurts him a couple times or can deny a takedown and get on top and change the tide of a fight that way, I don't see Elder getting tired. I think he's going to come in good condition. I think he knows that this is a big fight for him. You know, this is his second UFC fight. Had a bad show in his first one. Now he needs to come in here and come back, get a win, show everyone what he's about. And he's young. He's 25, 26 years old, so you know he's going to be well-conditioned and come in here with an edge. And I think Nazim is the better fighter, honestly. But I just think that the things that I was saying, the lack of... what's the word I'm trying to think of? Like, he's just not... He doesn't go for it enough, in my opinion. I think he's too... Nonchalant is the word that's coming up in my head. Urgency. That's what I'm trying to think of. Like, he doesn't have that urgency, man. He doesn't have that urgency to go for it at certain times. I think Elder's going to be a little bit more active. I think he's going to steal it on points in a fight where Sadykhov probably looks like he is the better fighter and should have won the fight. And I think it's going to help Sadykhov in the future. But I think in this fight, I think Elder's going to get him here by decision. And I'm going to go with Evan Elder to win in a slight upset. And this next fight, this is one that I'm not really too interested from a betting perspective and kind of perplexed from a picking perspective. It's a hard one for me. I think Jim Miller, man, I mean, he's one of my favorite fighters because I used to like him before I even started all this betting, and he's still doing the damn thing. He's surprised me. I think he surprised everybody that he still won 3 fights in a row at 39 years old, had 40 fights in the UFC, and he's just had tremendous career, so you got to give it to him. But this is a step up in competition for him against Hernandez, and we'll see. I mean, it seems like when he gets that step up recently, in the later part of his career, he's never been able to get over that hump. But Alexander Hernandez, he's a guy that's in all type of shambles as well. He is on a 2-fight losing streak. He's lost 3 of 4. Definitely, you could tell the guy's having some mental problems in the cage. Like, he started so good against Billy Q. He was dominating the first round. And then second round, he faced one little thing of adversity, man, and he just crumbles so quick. And it happens, it's a reoccurring issue with him. So that's just something that he's going to have to deal with. But it's hard circumstances for Hernandez to come in here on short notice. I mean, the guy just got beat up pretty bad against Billy Q. I mean, he lost that fight. That was only 2 months ago. That was at 145. Now he's coming back up to 155. Jim Miller fought his last fight at 70, so you know he's going to probably be a bigger guy in that cage, even though height-wise they're the same height. I think he's going to be a little bit more dense, probably weigh a little bit more than Hernandez, who probably is a little bit smaller than he used to be now that he was going down to 145 and already had a 145 fight. And man, it just makes it much closer. I feel like if these guys are both optimal 100%, like if they sparred at the gym and Hernandez had no pressure on him, I think Hernandez would win pretty easily. I think that he's much faster. He could switch stance. He's more powerful, explosive. His wrestling will be a big factor because Jim Miller can brawl, man, and his striking is underrated. He still has that nice straight left hand, good calf kicks, and he has power. Nice check right hook. We've seen him knock guys out recently. And if he could clip Hernandez and hurt him, then we've seen Hernandez not really react well to any adversity whatsoever. So then Miller could maybe flurry on him and get him out of there, or jump on the neck or get some sort of submission. So if it stayed striking 100%, then I think Miller would have the best chance. But I'm just saying, I think if they were in a format where it was just skill for skill, Hernandez would be able to take him down, outstrike him, and maybe even knock him out early, even though Miller's extremely durable. If he can't, just outgrind him out with the wrestling. But in a live aspect with fans and all that, I think it's much more of a tough decision because Hernandez has just crumbled before. But this fight being in the Apex, I think does make it a little bit easier for Hernandez maybe in that aspect. But man, it's a tough one for me. I mean, I'm going to go with Hernandez just because I think that he's much faster on the feet. I think he's going to be able to move around, avoid that left hand. And Miller's not a guy that really throws combos. He is more one strike and done type of guy. I don't think he's going to push that high pace, high volume that Hernandez has struggled with, or catch him with any sort of combination. He's going to have to catch him with one big shot, hurt him, and then flurry on him, or one big shot, hurt him, and then finish him type of thing to get the win, I feel like. And I think Hernandez is going to be able to clinch him against a cage, get a couple takedowns, get Miller tired. He pushes a high pace. And I don't necessarily think it's a cardio issue with Hernandez. I think it's more of an issue with him mentally breaking. So as long as, it's not a crazy fight where he goes into a brawl with Miller and Miller clips him and takes him out, I think Hernandez could get some takedowns and win this one. But do I trust him to win, especially at minus 200? Not really. And just a fight that I want to enjoy as a fan and totally stay away from a betting perspective. But got to make a pick, so I'm going to say Alexander Hernandez by decision. This next fight, I don't really have much to say at all in this fight. I hate this fight, honestly. I don't get why UFC is having William Knight come back down to 205. He weighed in at 251 for his last fight. He weighed in at like 218 when he fought Maxine Grisham at 205. But man, I mean, I think he's going to win this fight, honestly. I think that he's more explosive. Prachnio has good kicks when he can keep it on the outside, but his cardio isn't good. I don't think he's that dangerous. Unless he lands like a shin on the chin or a big body shot and takes William Knight out, which I think it's going to be hard to hurt that guy with that much muscle to the body. But yeah, man, I think that William Knight's just going to be more explosive, be able to get inside and maintain that cardio, hold him against the cage, get a couple takedowns on Prachnio, and just kind of dirty fight and make it a win that way. I mean, we've seen William Knight in there against a lot higher level competition, if you ask me, when he's fighting Devin Clark, who's looking good recently, and he gave him some trouble, and he's fought some other high level guys. And even though I don't really rate either fighter very highly at all, I think that William Knight is going to be able to get on the inside. He's going to be more explosive, stronger for sure. I think he's going to win the clinch battle, get a couple takedowns, and win the fight that way. Maybe Prachnio could keep it on range with kicks and outpoint William Knight or end up knocking him out. But I'm going to say William Knight, gets on top in the second round, pounds him out, gets the finish. And do I know if he's going to make weight? Do I really think this fight's even going to happen? I don't know. But I'm going to say William Knights wins via second round KO. With this next fight, Josh Parisian versus Jamal Pogues, it's a heavyweight fight. Pretty confident Jamal Pogues gets the job done in this one. I think Jamal Pogues, he's not the greatest fighter in the world, but for heavyweight perspective, he probably has the potential to get into the rankings at the bottom end. I feel like he has good boxing, good hand speed, nice jab, good straight right hand. He'll throw in nice combinations when he can back you up or if you get too aggressive with him. And he can wrestle. He has good takedowns, good top control. One thing is I haven't really seen him wrestle at heavyweight with that extra weight on him. So I don't know if he's going to be able to hold up and wrestle. But we've seen him wrestle for in heavyweight or in championship fights, 5-round fights at light heavyweight. And use a lot of his wrestling to dominate fights. And I think in this one, if he wants to wrestle Josh Parisian, that'll be a very easy thing for him to do. I think he could take him down pretty easily with the doubles and control him on top. Pogues isn't a world beater from the top position, but he could control that position and grind guys out. And Josh Parisian, he's someone that I think it's 100% out of his capabilities, but he's just not the greatest athlete. He's heavyweight with limited power. He does have good kick dexterity for a big guy. Like, he'll throw a lot of decent kicks and some spins and things like that. He has diverse striking, and he's high volume. He is willing to put it all out there and go for 100%, get exhausted to win a fight, which you don't see a lot of fighters do, which is something that's why I think he gets the maximum out of his capabilities. But if you're a heavyweight, you don't have power, he gets kind of sloppy and he does get tired. And his wrestling isn't good either. I just think it's not a great recipe to survive in the UFC long term. He's been able to out-cardio a couple guys, out-volume them, and get sloppy decision wins. But with Jamal Pogues, even on the feet, I think Pogues is too polished, too technical with the boxing. Keeps shots straight down the middle, nice jab. I think he's going to be able to win with the basics against Parisian's kind of kinetic, diverse striking. And I think that he can hit the takedowns if he wants to at ease and get him down. Pogues, last fight he came back from a long layoff. And hopefully he, dusted some rust off, and now he's ready to come in here and use the wrestling, use his full skill set, and look good here. So I could see Pogues getting a finish on the ground if he comes in here and looks 100%. If he looks like he did in his last fight where he just wants to keep it standing, then I think he could win that way too. So I'm going to say Jamal Pogues gets it down to the ground at one point in this fight and gets a finish via TKO. So I'm going to go with Jamal Pogues via TKO in round 2 or round 3. And for the co-main event here, we got Zach Pauga versus Jordan Wright. It doesn't even feel right calling this a co-main event, but that's what we got right here. And I think, first of all, I think the line's insane. I would put this as like a pick'em, honestly. I thought Zach Pauga, he really shit the bed in his last fight, man. He did not look good in that one. Even though people are saying he dominated the fight, which he was winning pretty clearly, you could see, him being so hittable throughout the whole fight. And he just hasn't cleaned up any of those pre-UFC defensive deficiencies that I saw. And at heavyweight, I think he had a better style, man, than at light heavyweight. He's getting older. He's almost 35 years old, which a lot of people don't really realize, even though he's young in the UFC game. And so almost 35 years old, coming off a knockout loss. You don't know where his head's at, especially dropping down in weight. You don't know exactly how he's going to perform either. And I just don't have a lot of faith in Pauga going in there and looking great. I mean, the guy has hands-down style, good jab. He's fairly fast, and that's why I thought his style was better at heavyweight, because he has decent footwork movement. He can kind of pot shot with the jab and use his speed, pull twos. He has that nice left hook counter and good calf kicks, so he can kind of keep it technical, stay on the outside, and bust some people up. But at light heavyweight, I don't think that speed advantage is going to be as pronounced, especially against a pretty fast guy like Jordan Wright. And Pauga doesn't really have that grappling. I haven't really seen him go for takedowns. I've seen him defend takedowns fairly well, but not against the best opposition either. So I think he could be taken down potentially too. We saw Jordan Wright in his last fight go in there and hit some takedowns, win the first round with takedowns against Dusto Tavorovic, which we never saw him do before. So he obviously is still getting better, still adding to his game. And Jordan Wright is very athletic, and he's starting to improve his toughness as well. I mean, we saw him take some brutal shots in multiple fights now, and his chin is definitely questionable too. But if you're going to give me these type of odds, I think you almost got to bet on Jordan Wright or put something small on him, because the guy's very dangerous right off the bat. He throws great spin kicks. He has dangerous 1-2s and exchanges. He is very, very athletic. He'll throw some flying attacks. And early in the fight, I definitely think he could touch Pauga and knock him out. And I think he can move around on Pauga, piece him up from the outside with the kicks, and kind of try to negate that boxing range, get the better of it there. I think he could go into the clinch and use that wrestling and maybe clinch game and show his strength, even though Pauga's a heavyweight coming down. And I think that Jordan Wright, even though he's moving up to 205, is going to be the bigger, stronger guy. He's a huge guy, man. I mean, if you see Jordan Wright, he should probably have been fighting at 185. Maybe at 205, he's going to look much better. And I think his kicking game is going to be dynamic at 205, where it really wasn't as good at 185. I'm not saying Jordan Wright's going to come in here and start taking over at 205, but with this fight, I got to lean towards Jordan Wright here. I don't like that Zach Pauga's coming off a knockout, 35 years old, hasn't fought anyone, 5-1. Jordan Wright, you could say what you want. He is coming off of a knockout loss as well, and he's lost quite a few fights, but he's fought a lot higher level competition. He has proven that he's tough. I think that the striking is going to be competitive. I don't really see Pauga having that, one-hitter quitter power that some of these other guys that he's fought had, like Buckley, like Anthony Hernandez, like he got knocked out by Bueno Silva. I mean, these guys are heavy hitters, man. Pauga, I don't necessarily know if he has that. And I think that Wright is going to be able to, I'm going to say Wright gets the first round knockout in this one and pulls off the upset. So give me Jordan Wright. I just think these odds are off. It was more like a pick 'em. Potentially I would go with Pauga as the prediction, but with these current odds that they're giving me, I'm going to go with Jordan Wright. I think he can keep it dynamic early, maybe catch him with a big shot and knock him out. So give me Jordan Wright to win this fight via first-round KO. Finally, we got the main event here, Jessica Andrade versus Erin Blanchfield. It was going to be Tyler Santos versus Blanchfield, which is a very tough test as well. But Tyler had to pull out, and you can never make me mad when you say Jessica Andrade is going to be on the card. I'll tune in every time. So definitely excited that Jessica Andrade stepped up on short notice and took this fight. And very, very interesting. I mean, Erin Blanchfield was taking a huge step up in competition. Everyone's hype off that Molly McCann victory, but, us hardcores know that Molly McCann, man, I wasn't necessarily top 25 even talent. I don't think that was, like, as high level of victory as people are saying. And you have to go back and look at the fight previous to the Molly McCann fight where she fought J.J. Aldrich to show, in my opinion, the best UFC fighter that she's faced so far. And she did drop the first round in that one. She was losing the second round as well, Blanchfield, before she caught that front choke off the slip from J.J. Aldrich. So I think she has a lot to prove here. But at 23 years old, almost 24, she's going to be improving very, very quickly every time out. So we haven't necessarily, even though I'm saying she got pieced up by J.J. Aldrich a little bit in the first round, lost the first round, losing the second. That fight was over a year ago at this point. Maybe we see Blanchfield this time, and maybe if she fought JJ again, her takedowns would be much more effective and she would dominate her. So it's hard to gauge when girls are this young and this focused and this, confident and vigorous like a Blanchfield, because she's going to be blowing it out in training every time. She's going to come in with new skills. She has a really long reach for the weight, which I think in this fight is going to pay some big dividends potentially, because she has to use the hands to open up the takedowns, man. She's not going to be able to shoot in blind on someone like Andrade. That is very, very tough. She's not going to be able to pressure Andrade like she pressured these other girls, I don't believe either, unless she gets her boxing going. Because if she doesn't get that jab going where she can get Jessica Andrade moving backwards off the jab or off the straight punches, Andrade isn't going to respect anything she's throwing, man. She's not going to have the power to back Andrade up. So she has to touch Andrade over and over to get Andrade to know, okay, I can't just go forward on this girl. I got to be a little bit more tactical. And if that allows Blanchfield to take the front foot, then that single leg is going to come up a lot more. Being able to get Jessica Andrade into the cage and in the clinch and potentially get her down that way is going to come up a lot more. But I see a lot of people pointing to the fight with Valentina Shevchenko and saying Shevchenko took down Andrade so easily, so Blanchfield should be the favorite and is going to get the win here. But I don't necessarily see this as even close to a similar matchup, because Shevchenko, man, that's a big girl. You see her, she's ripped up. And even though Andrade is big, and I don't necessarily think Valentina just won on pure strength, I think that in the clinch, Valentina has a lot more physical strength than Erin Blanchfield, and that is going to make a difference. and Valentina striking allowed her to control the center and make Andrade respect it, go backwards. Andrade was anticipating the counters. She wasn't as aggressive as she is against Moscow's, just walking him down with reckless abandon. And I think with Blanchfield, that's going to be the battle of the fight. Blanchfield is going to have to early in the fight show, hey, I got this 6-inch reach advantage. I've been working on my hands and my boxing, and I'm going to jab you up. I'm going to hit you with this cross. I'm going to touch you every time you try to come in. I'm going to use my footwork. I'm going to be on point. And when you start to get frustrated and back up and start to let me get the front foot so you can try to counter me, then I'm going to get my wrestling going. Because if you try to go in there and just try to bulldoze forward, not use the hands and shoot blind takedowns, you're probably going to get knocked out. And if you allow Andrade to just pressure you and you don't have a jab or you don't have something that's making her back up or making her think about it, then it's going to be hard to set up that takedown off the back foot with someone that's like a Tasmanian devil just throwing bombs at you. So it's a tough matchup for Blanchfield for sure. I mean, anytime you get in there with Jessica Andrade, it's going to be a hard night in the office. I do think she has the skills. If she can get on top of Andrade, I think Blanchfield has one of the best top games in the female weight class in the UFC. She has excellent transitions. Her top control is top notch. She has great submission game. She's training out there in New York with Renzo Gracie and all those Shark Tank guys at his gym. So she's just very, very high level if she can get on top. And if she can get it onto the back or on that crucifix position that she got against Molly McCann, like Shevchenko and Andrade, she can close the show too. So Blanchfield is someone that has a finishing ability, just like Andrade at the women's division, which is not that prominent, and it makes them even that much better. Like you saw the fight, for instance, with J.J. Aldridge that I keep re-referencing. She was losing that entire fight, and then out of nowhere, she caught that front choke, got the finish, and went home. So she showed that ability to change the tide of a fight. But when you're talking about changing the tide of the fight, you just want to talk about Jessica Andrade and her power. Man, she could change the tide of a fight. We saw her fight with Lauren Murphy recently, so you know she's going to be in shape. She's came back and stayed in Vegas, I believe. She's still been training here. And training in Vegas since the Valentina fight, you know what she's been working on for sure, at least in my opinion, and that's that wrestling and grappling. And it's going to be put to the test here. I mean, we're going to see how much her wrestling defense has improved, how much her ability to get up off bottom has improved, and how much her ability to get out of a bad position or survive in a bad position if you get put there has improved against Blanchfield potentially if she does end up on her back. But with Andrade, you know what she wants to do. She's like the female John Lineker, man. She's walking you down, throwing big hooks, head movement. She's gotten much, much more defensively responsible, even though she's still hittable. It doesn't really matter at certain points because she's just a tank. She can take shots, but she's gotten better at blocking shots and rolling with shots too. And man, I mean, she just hits like a ton of bricks. She'll mix it up body, head, super high volume, never gets tired. And yeah, she damages you, man. She's one of the best fighters in the history of female fighting. If you get in a clinch with her, she's shown immense strength. She slammed girls on their head. And Blanchard has to be very, very, very careful in that clinch, man, to not get lifted and elevated and slammed. And she just has to be very, very keen and aware. But with Andrade, I would limit the clinch exchanges. I would limit any type of like getting close, not even in close range, but just getting in that grappling or wrestling type of fight. Just try to keep it at distance, throw bricks. And Blanchfield is hittable, man. Even though she's tall, long, she's hittable. And if Andrade lands a few body shots, a few headshots, I don't know how cold-blooded Blanchfield is going to stay, man. I mean, it's going to be tough. I've never seen someone fight Andrade and come out the fight, unless they won the fight with wrestling and held her down or were able to negate her striking with movement. I've never seen someone say, oh, I just took Andrade's punches. She didn't hit that hard. Like, nah, man, every one of those girls are saying, I've never been hit like that before. So, man, I don't think Blanchfield has ever felt someone that's going to be touching her like Andrade. And one thing about Blanchfield, though, is I do think that being young, and she also has that indomitable spirit and extreme confidence, I think she's going to be in there and she's going to be game. It's going to be like Lauren Murphy where you're going to have to really batter her, I think. I don't think she's just going to get out of there. And I think she's going to take a lot of damage if she can't get her game going, which is the grappling. And I got to lean with Andrade, man. I mean, maybe Erin Blanchfield is leveled up that much and she's going to improve and show me that, hey, I'm way better than I was when I fought J.J. Aldridge, and I'm going to go in here, take down Andrade, use my reach on the feet to back her up, and then dominate from that top position, finish her, and go home. And if she does that, then she probably deserves the title shot. But I'm going to say Andrade, even on a week's notice, she's able to come in here, use that pressure, use her strength, her improved takedown defense now being in the stage training here. And she already had pretty good takedown defense in general. And, ability to just pressure, keep that same pace, cardio, and just beat Blanchfield up. And I'm going to say she wins via 4th round TKO in this one. I think Blanchfield is going to stay tough. I think she's going to take a lot of damage. But ultimately, I think she's just going to get battered, worn down. And I think that either the ref is going to step in and get like a standing TKO, or she's going to just drop her and get a TKO that way against the cage or something. So Jessica Andrade is going to be the pick for me. I know she's coming in on short notice. She's facing someone that's flying high that a lot of people are picking here as the slight underdog to come in here and get the best of Andrade. They just got a huge win in Madison Square Garden against probably the biggest name at the 125-pound division outside of Valentina and maybe even Andrade in Molly McCann. But Andrade, I think, is going to, put a bow on that and kind of show that, hey, man, I'm still here. I'm still here for the title shot, 115, 125. And I'm going to go with Andrade to win this fight via 4th round KO TKO. As far as my most confident pick of the week, I'm going to go with Mayra Bueno Silva. And for the parlay of the week, I'm going to go with Mayra Bueno Silva and Jamal Pogues. That's going to be my parlay of the week this week. So thanks for watching, guys. And let's try to get this video to 100 likes. Come on, man. You guys have been messing with me with the likes, man. Just hit the fucking button. Come on. It's not that hard. Let's get 100 likes. And try to put down the comments down below. Tell me what your hot take is on this card. Tell me who you're betting on. Let's try to get some more comments, and engagement on this video. I'd really appreciate it. I feel like I put in a lot of work, put in, a lot of videos week in, week out. I don't know when the last time I missed a UFC, but yeah, man, besides that, if you want to get the bets, we've been killing it so far this year. We made already a lot more money than the yearly subscription even cost for the Patreon betting. If you want to go to patreon.com/MMA Prediction Guru, go there. That's where you get the bets. And besides that, man, stay plugged into the channel. Subscribe if you're not subscribed. I really appreciate all the support.